For Reaper Metal Productions, I am Adam of Unbaptized Records, making a brand new video for you today. And today is my sixth and final video going through my non-metal guilty pleasures. So I've literally scoured through all 700 or so of my CDs to pick out every single one that does not fit in the metal category. Threw them all into this video, called them guilty pleasures, which some of them I'd say definitely are, especially given just the juxtaposition to extreme metal and what people are used to on this channel and other channels of the like. So I would be curious to see what people do think of some of these releases, and if you've actually heard of any of them, and especially if you actually like them, even if you don't own the CDs, if you're just strictly in it to collect metal music, but you've heard of some of these songs and you recognize them, maybe you even kind of enjoy them, I'd be curious to know, because again, this is going to be so outside of the realm of what most people like, especially if you're almost only into metal, then maybe you haven't heard of any of these, but I would be curious to see. So let me know in the comments what you thought of some of these releases. The first one is the third album I mentioned that is a soundtrack, specifically of the two that are soundtracks for TV shows, and that is The Simpsons. This was kind of cool. I assumed this kind of stuff existed, but I didn't know, and I didn't go out of my way to look. It's kind of cool. It even has, the Homer Simpson donut. Um, but this is just a bunch of the songs from the show. It's a compilation. It's not just like the title themes, but it's also stuff from the show. So anytime there was a sing-along in the show, it's probably in here, especially for like the first, I don't even know how long, 6, 7. Well, one of the songs is Who Shot Mr. Burns Part 2, and that is season 6, I believe. So it looks like this is up to like maybe season 6 or 7. But according to the back, there's 39 songs. But there's a lot. I mean, not going to go through the whole list. There's no way you can read it, but I mean, that's a lot. So stuff from the show. So yeah, I don't know if you all remember any of the early stuff, but Bleeding Gums Murphy. There was the one episode where Marge did that Streetcar Named Desire, and they called it Streetcar Named Marge. So one of the songs from there. The song that Troy McClure did when he was in the Amadeus. It was like Amadeus, but it was yeah, whatever that song was. It was supposed to be Planet of the Apes. Yeah, so I mean, you can imagine. So just think of some of the songs that were in the show, some of the original episodes. The one that had Michael Jackson in it. I don't know if you remember, but they pretended it wasn't him, and they gave him some fake name, but it really was him. So he sang that song, Lisa, It's Your Birthday. That's some of the stuff that's on here. So I think it's kind of cool because I'm a huge fan of The Simpsons. I know a lot of people are. And then just to have this kind of compilation of the early stuff on CD is pretty cool. And I found it for like $1. So you never know what you're going to find sometimes when you just go shopping around. This one I will definitely say I bought because of that one song that most people know. I would be surprised if anyone here knows any other songs by the band, because I don't, and I own the CD. That is the band Spin Doctors. So this specific album is called Pocket Full of Kryptonite. And for those of you who have no idea who this is or why I own it, well, the song is called Two Princes. So this was just a very all over the radio, kind of hard to miss song of the early 90s, I believe. If you don't know it, type in the song Two Princes by the Spin Doctors, and within about 3 seconds, you probably shut it off and be like, what the hell is this deplorable crap? But I guarantee you'll be like, oh, yeah, that song. I hated that stupid song. That's it. But you know what it is. I actually kind of enjoy it. I'd be curious to hear what the rest of the album is like. I can't imagine it's very good. But that's the one thing I do feel bad for, that kind of music where it became a one-hit wonder and no one ever listened to any other music by them, or most people probably didn't. That's how all these CDs ended up on the shelves of thrift stores. So given I am a fan of obviously metal music, but music in general as well, I think it'd be kind of cool to go through and listen to it just in case. So maybe another song will be good from it. Who knows? Maybe it'll all be deplorable and just that one song was kind of the hit and that's it. That happens too. But next is a band that I would not say has a one hit, has just a lot of great songs. One of those bands that sort of, a lot of people who probably listen to metal grew up with just the early bands of the 70s and 80s, probably also like this band. Maybe as a guilty pleasure, maybe not, I don't know. This was definitely a big band from back in the day, and that is a band that really doesn't need much introduction, and that is Boston. Songs like More Than a Feeling, Peace of Mind, Rock and Roll Band, Hitch a Ride. I mean, there's really slim chance people don't know who this is. Granted, that Serbian pop album that I had in the other video, yeah, I guarantee you there's no one watching this who will ever watch any of these videos who know that release. But Boston is kind of the opposite. I mean, it's one of those artists that really doesn't need any introduction. I'm sure you know who Boston is, and if you say you don't, you've probably heard at least one song by them at some point, and I'd be really surprised if you hadn't. So next is going to be an interesting mix of a couple different artists. So I'm going to put them in a little bit of a different order here. So these next two kind of fall into sort of that pop punk category. Well, actually, no. One of them does. The first one does. The second one, I don't really know what category it falls into. Maybe one of those one-hit wonder type bands that I'm sure you've heard that one song by them, or actually they have like two that are kind of that hit. You probably heard it and you're like, oh, okay, it's that band, whatever. This next one definitely falls in line with bands like Simple Plan, Blink-182, Sum 41, SR-71, Alien Ant Farm, crap like that. So again, chances are you're probably not going to like it, and you probably beat kids up in high school who did listen to this stuff, which is fine, whatever. That is the band Yellowcard. Whatever reason, I came across them at some point. The song Ocean Avenue was kind of inescapable in that early 2000s, late 90s pop punk scene. This was just one of those bands that I came across because this was sort of my gateway into alternative music. As I said in the previous video, I played a lot of extreme sports video games, so dirt biking, skateboarding, off-road, stuff like that. A lot of those had soundtracks with stuff like this. So that's another way that people who played those games would come across that kind of stuff. And eventually it did lead me into liking heavier stuff, eventually like the hard rock, and that leads into some of the early heavy metal, which eventually leads into some of the more extreme metal. For some people like myself, some people it doesn't. They just kind of stick with this and they stop. That's fine too. It is what it is. In general, I don't like most of the stuff, but there's a few songs here and there I like, and Ocean Avenue did stick with me. The song Breathing I also like as well, but very much in that whiny pop punk style, which I imagine most people watching this probably don't like. That's very understandable. So next is an interesting band. Again, not really sure exactly how to categorize it. I guess I would kind of say pop rock, but that's the band The Killers. So this is the album Hot Fuss, and very, very horribly designed, where it's like this really light kind of blue background with white text. So, I mean, the light, you definitely can't read it, but I can barely read it. I'm just trying to remember. I mean, the song Mr. Brightside is probably the song you've heard, or Somebody Told Me. Those are the two songs. So I'm not going to sing them for you, but if you look either of them up, so Somebody Told Me and Mr. Brightside, I guarantee you those are also inescapable radio songs that they still play. Somebody told me that you had a girlfriend somebody told me you had a boyfriend who looked like a girlfriend who I had in February of last year. So I think he's singing about a trans person. What it sounds like. Kind of like the song Lola. If any of you old heads out there know the Kinks, the song Lola, that's all I have to say. But if you don't know, I'm not going to explain it to you. Look up that song, look up the lyrics, and it kind of gives me that vibe. So, or the other song, Mr. Brightside, also guarantee you almost everyone here has probably heard that at some point or another. Whether or not you wanted to, whether or not it was voluntary, probably a different story, but you've probably heard it. So that's also on there as well. So then there's one other song called When We Were Young, and I actually heard that on Guitar Hero too. So for whatever that's worth, but that's not on this. Last two we have definitely two fairly different artists. This one is less so an artist and more of a, I guess, kind of a satirist, I would say. I mean, maybe he takes himself seriously, which I really don't. Similar to kind of Weird Al, but maybe he doesn't think that way. And that is the artist Tenacious D. So Jack Black and Kyle Gass, who recently self-canceled himself for political reasons I'm not going to get into. But this is specifically the soundtrack of the movie The Pick of Destiny. Great songs like Kickapoo, Classico, The Government Totally Sucks. I love that. And then Car Chase City and Beelzebub, which is kind of cool. And then The Metal, which I just mentioned, Guitar Hero, that was actually in the third one. So, fun little fact. And Kickapoo is a great song if you don't know it. If it's the only song you listen to by this group, it has Meatloaf. Oh, actually, both. Yeah, both people are dead now. So, the late Meatloaf, not really call him great, but whatever. Late Meatloaf and the late great Dio. I couldn't think of his first name for some reason. Wow, I must just be really tired. But yeah, so both Dio and Meatloaf are in that song and in the music video. Well, in the movie. So, but it's a pretty decent movie. I'm not like the biggest Jack Black fan. I find him kind of interesting because I feel like he thinks he's a rock star and he's kind of not. I see him as more of like the Weird Al of hard rock. I think he thinks he's bigger or more interesting than he is, and I wouldn't really agree. But this is still an entertaining, set of songs. Fits well with the movie. It's very goofy. Kyle Gass is a great second man to his whole shtick. And then again, like I said, they self-canceled themselves because of some political things. So whatever, sucks for them. But I do find that interesting, and I have one other release by them, which has the song Tribute, which is probably their other biggest song. But it'd be interesting. Let me know in the comments if you guys like Tenacious D, if you like any of their music, and if you like the movie The Pick of Destiny. And last but not least, it's a classic band. Really doesn't need much introduction either. This is a double CD, which is really cool. And it has most songs I've not heard of because I'm not super privy to all the music by this band, but it definitely has the classics that I do know and I do enjoy, and that is the band The Rolling Stones. And actually, I have a patch of the Rolling Stones tongue here on my vest. Probably going to take it off because it just doesn't, it doesn't really have to fit because if you like the music, that's all that really matters. But I got it in one of those stupid like Amazon packs of patches, just a bunch of classic bands. This was really before I was smart about how I bought my patches. I would just sort of buy whatever and get my hands on and then just put the ones that really fit onto my vest. I've taken a lot of those off because that was just sort of a stupid way of accumulating patches, especially given they aren't easy. It's not like it's simple to just put them on. I always sew them. I never put them on with try to put them on with the little sticky backs where you can iron them on because that never works. So it's kind of a waste. So I definitely got rid of some of the ones that I had on there previously that were just sort of filler. Especially as I started going to more shows and was able to pick up patches in person and from other vendors that actually have bands I actually enjoy and not just stuff that feels like it kind of fits on a vest. That was pretty dumb, but it was also just a project to keep my mind off of things at the time. So, but I do still have a patch of them and probably will take it off, but that's probably the least metal patch on my vest. But I do enjoy some stuff by the band. And if you are a fan of the Black Dahlia Murder, which I guess technically fit under my guilty pleasures for metal music, definitely metal music, they covered the song Paint It Black. That was actually a really good cover. I didn't think a metal band covering the Rolling Stones would be any good, but it was actually pretty good. And speaking of covers, I mentioned Creedence before, and again, this also fell under the remit of metal bands that were my guilty pleasures, but Children of Bodom did a cover, among other bands, of Creedence Clearwater Revival, Looking Out My Back Door, and they even matched the music video, and I thought that was pretty clever. But these guys are a classic band up there with the Beatles and a lot of other British invasion bands of the 60s and 70s. So it's hard not to like it, but I could see if you're just strictly into metal, maybe you don't. But if you're a classic person and you've been around the scene for a while and you grew up kind of before metal was a thing, I'm pretty sure you listen to the Rolling Stones and like them. And then hopefully some of the younger people too do go back and listen to the kind of music because there's more out there in the world than just metal, even though metal is, in my opinion, the best genre. I'm glad it exists, and I definitely would choose it over anything else, but there's plenty of other stuff to listen to, so sometimes it's worth cleansing your palate and trying something a little different. So that's it. That's part 6 of my non-metal guilty pleasures. Let me know what you thought of some of those releases, bands, songs in the comment section, and I will see you in the next video.